Welcome back, my lords and ladies, to the Cast Beyond the Wall. We are your guide to all things Westerosi, and we're here to bring you a review, analysis, and fan v fan debate on each episode of HBO's hit show, Game of Thrones. This week we are discussing the infamous, or should we say famous, Episode 9 of Season 6, The Battle of the Bastards. I'm your host, Caleb Masters, and if that title does not sound like the fanfickiest thing ever, the next thing you're going to be telling me is that the Harry Potter epilogue was Shakespeare.
It was. What are you talking about? It was like one of the best parts of the books.
Oh my god. You people and your epilogues and such. What is it with epilogues? Why do they always suck so hard? I feel like they should be the best part of the story.
I am Daniel Stoll, and it finally pays off to be a Stark this week, and it feels so good. So good. So good.
You've been waiting for how many years, Stoll? What, 6 years?
Yeah. 6 years is it.
6 years, and it felt like, all right, Starks they're doing okay today.
Finally we get some sort of a victory, and it is very much satisfying.
All right, sir, my other co-host.
I'm Austin Lucari, and I think my hot take this week is the wrong Stark died this week.
What?
Yeah, that's right. Jon Snow should have died again just to make the internet angry. It'd have been great. I'd have loved it. I'd fed off the chaos. Been fantastic.
You're gonna Littlefinger us? Is that what's gonna happen?
Whoa!
I mean,
what?
It would be the most unexpected thing to happen, even though they hinted at it the whole time.
Wow! I didn't know we were that type of podcast.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's right. We are not Littlefingering you with this week's podcast, and this year we are podcasting with our good friends and gracious host on the Good Trash Media Network. And the Good Trash Media Network, if you haven't heard of it, is a website dedicated to taking your experience watching TV and film beyond the screen and onto your listening device. Why? Because TV and film is so much more than 90 minutes in a bucket of popcorn, or in this case, 60 minutes in a bucket of bloody wine. Because, God, there was a lot of blood this week.
Even the Hound would be proud of the amount of blood this week.
I'm sure he'll have his 2 cents in another date. You can track all of our posts here on the Cast Beyond the Wall on the Good Trash social media pages at facebook.com/goodtrashmedia or on Twitter at good_trash. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is the time in the show, before we get into our recap and review of this week's episode, The Battle of the Bastards, we have some listener feedback. Wouldn't you know that, guys? Someone took it to heart, our complaints last week, and they actually gave us a call.
I think we had even more than one listener feedback this week. The first one totally called me out, and I think all of us probably, for mispronouncing my Sandy. I think that's how he said it should be pronounced, because we do. Every single time we say her name, we like mix in Melisandre in there, and it sounds
S's
awful.
and M's.
Yeah, you know, just one of those generic characters I don't care about. But no, thank you for the correction. You're totally right. Been saying it wrong for at least weeks.
Oh no, and I knew we were saying. It's one of those things in the post production process. You edit, and you're like, "Ooh, we didn't say that right." Sorry, guys. I should have just cut it all together. But in the truest of Caleb Masters fashions, I left the mispronunciation in. And we want to say thank you so much to our listener Keegan Parrish for that correction. Ladies and gentlemen, we here on the Cast Beyond the Wall, we love talking Game of Thrones, and we do our best to give you guys very researched opinions and thoughts and very accurately Westerosi pronunciations, and from time to time, we do beef up a little bit. So feel free to send us any corrections, again, at the Good Trash Media webpage. We'd love to hear from you. Now, that is one of at least 2 pieces of feedback we had this week. We have actually got an email. What do you know it, guys? People still use the email. It's pretty amazing. I had no idea. It's like you know how we used to say snail mail?
What is this email you speak of?
It's like electronic mail where you can.
Is it like a text message?
It's like that, except for a little slower. So it's like you send it to an inbox and you read it like a letter. It's a lot more official, and I actually sometimes, very often, prefer email to texting because usually they're a little more. You put a little more thought into your emails. But yes, we got an email in our inbox at the Good Trash Genre Cast email inbox from one of our listeners, Ha said, first, love listening to your podcast. Your humor, insight, and conversations about Game of Thrones are really entertaining and top-notch. And I just want to let you know that I so emphasize with your guys' frustration with the show lately. Being a book reader, but not a stickler, the show is getting more and more sloppy and inconsistent. I think Wise and Benioff have a general idea of where the characters are going to end up in the books, but they seem muddy about how they're going to get there. And because of this, the details, motivation, and the depth of the character ideas are suffering. Jaime's arc stopped at the end of season 4, and he is not the same character anymore. Even non-book readers I know sensed him going backwards as a character, and this is really frustrating. And I think they have done nothing with Jon Snow and the consequences of his resurrection. And the preview for this week's episode, The Battle of the Bastards, Jon tells Melisandre not to bring him back if he falls. They have not established anything as to how Jon is affected by being alive again or anything like that. I feel like many of the characters are just doing things to fulfill plot points. Anyway, you addressed some of my inconsistencies about the show's portrayal of the Hound and Arya, so I'll just end this here. But I have so much more to say. Keep up the great work. Great job. Ha. Ha, thank you so much for sending that email. It was good to hear from you.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was really exciting to read that, and it sort of made my day a little bit, so thank you very much.
Well, I don't want to retread old water here, but he's just following up on our conversation last week about at least my complaints. I think universally our complaints to varying degrees, not all of us were on the same page as to how annoying it was, but our complaint that we feel like a lot of the characters are being used, they're not as... They're getting further and further away from like organic character arcs and more into being used specifically to fulfill certain plot points. And I actually agree with that. That's one of my biggest problems with the season so far, personally. So, anyway, maybe you disagree. Maybe you're a listener out there who thinks, no, these are organic character evolutions. Jaime totally should still be in love with Cersei. Jon Snow, he ain't got time to reflect on his resurrection. Go ahead and hit us up again on the social media at Facebook or Twitter. Or if you want to email us, you can email us at goodtrashgenrecast@gmail.com. Gents, it's time for us to actually get into our full recap and review of this week's episode, The Battle of the Bastards.
Battles have been won against greater odds. I fought beyond the wall against worse than Ramsey Bolton.
You don't know him.
Thousands of men don't need to die. Only one of us.
Well, let's go ahead and get the ball rolling, shall we, gentlemen? This is episode 9. I'm actually starting to notice a pattern. Every other season, on the odd season numbers, we get traumatic death. Even season numbers, we get epic battles. So we've become accustomed to expecting a lot from our episode 9s. And the question I have for you, gents, is did it meet your expectations?
You know what? Last week, I let you guys drag me down into the mud, just wallow in the mud in self-pity and sadness about the way the direction the show was going. And I'm not going to let you do that again this week or ever again. I'm going to champion this episode. Episode had problems, sure. Whole season's had some problems. But overall, very good. A lot of fun. There wasn't a ton of character development or anything like that. We saw some of the most amazing battles, some of the best CG and effects that we've seen, frankly, ever on television. And I argue some of the best battles ever to be shown on any screen, period. Daniel, what did you think about it?
I think I'm with you on this one. I really liked this episode. And definitely as a standalone episode, I think is really good. I think once we pull back and look at this episode in the context of the whole season, it won't stay as strong. But just looking at this episode only, I think this is a really good episode. I think it's really strong. I think a lot of Really cool moments happened. I think the cinematography was great, and we'll talk about some of that. I think the music was really, really well done. So, yeah, I really enjoyed this episode.
What did I think about this episode? Well, firstly, I just want to say this, Austin. I don't know what you're talking about on the lack of character development. For the whole 2 seconds, Petyr Baelish is on screen. He had a come to Jesus moment. Did you not see it? The way he smirked? It was he saw Jesus, found Jesus in that moment.
I did not notice that.
Character arc right there. His whole season, Littlefinger's entire character arc this season. He smirks on a horse and finds Jesus. Done. That's all we need from Littlefinger.
I would push through some Sansa character development at the very end.
Oh no, there is. There most definitely is Sansa character development at the end. So I was joking. I think this episode, execution wise, as a piece of spectacle, was near flawless. Spectacular battle sequences, I should say, because both the stuff in Mereen and at Winterfell, spectacular. The visual effects are the best we've ever seen on this show. And honestly, in my opinion, to champion Austin's thought, some of the best we've ever seen in a fantasy story. Like, I think this is just as good, or if not better, than some of the Lord of the Rings stuff. So I'll champion this as a piece of spectacle and entertainment and visceral thrills. This is amazing, incredible. Because this literally from beginning to start to finish is just a really well executed show. I mean, God, the camera work. Oh my God, the camera work and even the basic plotting of the battle and the choreography. Holy smokes. But
here we go.
But here's the thing. And, we talked about this a couple of years ago, back on episode 9, the Battle at the Wall. And we've talked about this. I know specifically one of our former guest hosts, Ben Friend, was tweeting at me. None of us ever really loved the spectacle that much. Episodes. Those aren't usually what Game of Thrones is about. For me and him, at least, we were talking. It's like, I don't think the spectacle of Game of Thrones is why I like it. It's cool, sure. But I feel like the reasons I like Game of Thrones were mostly non-entities in this particular episode. There was a lot of cool stuff, a lot of great looking stuff, but none of the moral complexity was there. And even the Battle at the Wall, I love the same criticism at that battle. And I always go back to Blackwater, which for me is still the best battle episode, because there's so much, there's emotional stakes on both sides. There's a moral complexity to all of the figures at play. You want Stannis to bite it on one side, but you want Davos to survive. Then you want Joffrey to lose the Battle of the Wall, but you're still rooting for Tyrion and Bronn. And then just the way some of the character arcs come full swing, with the Hound being confronted by his fear of fire. And his little scene with Sansa, that episode for me sticks out to, if you're going to do a battle sequence, that's a Game of Thrones battle right there. Like, it's got all the spectacle, but it also has that like emotional weight and complexity to it that I don't feel like has been in either of these other two that we've received, particularly this one. Because even the Battle at the Wall, you had Tormund and Ygritte on one side who you were kind of rooting for, so there was something to latch onto. The whole season we built up to how Ramsay Bolton is a cartoon-ish villain, so of course we all want him to die. They've set it up. That's true. And the thing is, I don't like that Game of Thrones did that. I go back to the reasons I love Game of Thrones is because there is always a twist. Whenever you get that thing you really want to see, it comes at a cost. We thought we wanted Cersei to see her get her comeuppance, and she took the walk of shame, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh God, no human being deserves that. Me personally. Or I also go back to how Joffrey, we all wanted him to bite it so bad, but whenever he did die, it was not in the way we expected nor wanted to see, and I actually felt kind of sorry for him in the moment. So that is what Game of Thrones. I
disagree with you on the Joffrey point. I think very few people felt sorry for him.
I know the kid. He's a teenager. His face is turned purple and swollen. I don't celebrate that at all. I don't think it's something we should celebrate. I don't care how evil he is. And there's just something really pathetic and sad.
We saw basically the same thing in Willy Wonka. Augustus Gloop.
Yeah, except for he didn't die, and it was also
that we know of.
It's true. But I guess my point is, I like it when Game of Thrones turns the mirror in on ourselves and says, look at you. Look at your human savagery and look at what it's making. It's like making you reflect on yourself as a human being, right? And also capturing the complexity of the real world and human nature, and how even we as viewers might just be have a lot more in common with the villains, quote unquote villains of the story than we think. And that's true. Why, and this whole thing with Ramsey is not that at all. And it kind of,
how do you salvage that though? Because they've already built up a situation where Ramsey is very much the super evil villain. So they've gotten to this point anyway.
It's a problem.
And that's totally Benioff and Weiss doing, right? Because I don't think they really quite did it like this in the books at all. To be fair, I don't want to go back into the book thing, but that's all they're doing. I don't think at this point there was any salvaging that, but they did really try to like hammer it home this season. And, oh, he's extra evil, guys, super extra evil.
After we've already seen him be extra evil in past seasons.
Even the brutality with which we see him die at the end of the episode, to your point, we never really, I didn't feel bad about it. Did you guys feel bad?
I felt disappointed.
How so?
First off, the way they'd set him up, no death. The way they set him up, there was no death that would have been satisfying for him. Not a single one. I don't care if it's getting eaten by his own dogs, which is terrible. One, and two, I was disappointed because I wanted there to be more. It's like I said, I wanted there to be something extra that made me really chew on it. Like, it really made me question the way I'm watching this show. And there wasn't. In fact, it was doing the opposite. It was playing into the tropes that a lot of TV shows do. And that is a little disappointing to me.
I'll concede that. I get it. I do. I definitely have less of a problem with it than you do. But I totally understand where you're coming from there.
And your point, Stoll, I'm sorry, I'll let you get your 2 cents in here. But to your point, Austin, this is a show problem, not an episode problem. I mean, and it's really sad because even last season, they did a lot more to Ramsey was never ever like a guy you resonated with, but even last season they tried to give him development to make him more human, even though yes, he was fucked up beyond all belief he's a monster, but they were trying to give him some extra dimension there with his conversations with his father and how he spent a lot of time in Winterfell last year. And this year they said, "Well, fuck all that. He's a sociopath, through and through. Let's just have him relish in that and play that up." Anyway, again, show problem, not an episode problem.
I see your point, Caleb, and I agree with it to an extent, but I also think that you were talking about the idea of like the realism of it, the moral ambiguity and things like that, and how that relates to like the real world and. I think that, like there are people that are like Ramsey in our world that have existed and that are they do go psychopath and they do have no emotion for other humans. And I think Ramsey does fill that position, fills that role. And there are times, not all, it usually does not happen, but there are times where it works out and that guy does become defeated and the good guy, so to speak, does win. So I don't have any problems with it necessarily. I think that it's okay the way it worked out. If this were happening every time or the majority of the time, I could definitely have a problem with it. It wouldn't be Game of Thrones. But it happening this one time, I think it's okay for it to happen this one time.
Well, I don't want to belabor the point. We're going to have to agree to disagree. And again, and outside of just the human nature thing, it really, for me, is having me question as a viewer what I want to see. Because I think, at my truest of cores, I think that we should never celebrate the death of anybody. So when Game of Thrones has in the past done that, to characters we know at least, usually it's been a point of self-reflection and making you question yourself and how you watch this show and maybe how we interact with other people in our real world. And this episode played into the whole revenge, we gotta have it. Yeah, we got the revenge. Does it feel good?
I can't speak for everyone, obviously, and I was just in a small room with certain people, but nobody was reacted that way to his death. Everyone was like, okay, that happened. And I think the majority of people, and we should just go start with the episode because I think I have more to say about this later, but we're more interested in what was going on with Sansa in that scene. That was more important.
Yeah, and I've got things. We definitely have things to talk about there with Sansa as well. A lot of things to talk about with Sansa. Actually, she's probably the big talking point of the entire episode. But But yeah, let's go ahead and head into the recap. So we'll save the battle for Winterfell for another day. Let's go ahead and start off in Mereen, where we pick up last week where we left off, where Daenerys just showed up, despite sloppy writing. She showed up and was just there, and then Tyrion was kind of almost begging for forgiveness. I don't know. He was very quickly trying to make a case for himself so that Daenerys wouldn't kill him. But then very, very quickly he realized she's not going to kill him, but she is about to go on a Targaryen rampage if he didn't stop her.
Yeah, I think he was definitely begging for forgiveness, because she was like, I left and I come back to this. But to be fair, she left after an assassination attempt where the only thing that saved her was a dragon. So it's not like she left the city in pristine condition and Tyrion just ruined it. He was barely trying to hold things together. So even her judgment, I think, is a little unfair.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Austin, there. She does seem upset, but that was my exact thinking is, you left in the middle of a battle. You have nothing to really be mad at him for. What we know, and he's right, that's what he tries to show her, is that he actually held the city together while she was gone. So, I mean, I don't really think she's in the right spot to be upset with him there.
Just such a poor timing for both of them.
But I do think after the conversation a little bit, she's less concerned about the decisions he made and more like, how are we going to do this together to fix the problem? And I think their solution ended up being pretty damn good.
Yeah, sure. It was pretty smart. I mean, it was pretty fun seeing them go out and negotiate going out to negotiate the terms of surrender with the Masters, where they assumed they had the upper hand. It was pretty funny because we're all, I mean, you had to be you're all looking around. You're like, we all know that there's a dragon that's about to show up somewhere and light something up.
Did you notice the tiny little figure behind them?
Yes, I started laughing really hard.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And you also knew that she had the Dothraki army she was going to call in at some point.
Yes, so they probably knew about the dragon. They might have seen that, but they didn't know about the Dothraki.
Oh no.
Did you guys notice the Drogon's somehow even bigger than he was 2 episodes ago?
Well, that's because
he's growing faster than Bran Stark.
Well, he's on Game of Thrones timeline, which means to say he grows whenever the hell he feels like it. Okay. Although
he's like Smaug level of big now.
According to Benioff and Weiss, he's almost fully grown.
Well, we did see that dragon skull down in the basement of King's Landing, and it's pretty close now.
Hey, and you know what? Remember how at the very beginning of the season, Tyrion unchained the other 2 dragons? Well, hey, guys, that was they were laying the siege for 8 episodes later when they would just bash open the walls.
Could they not get out of the front door that he left open? They were just sitting there waiting.
Well, and I like how they just decided to wait until exactly this moment to say, hey, we're getting out of this tomb.
Yeah, we're out. They sensed it. They heard Drogon. They're like, hey, bro, what's up? Haven't seen you in a while. The interesting thing was I did like the Grey Worm justice we had there. It was kind of it reminded me a little bit of King Solomon a little bit. It was oh, which one of you is going to die for this? And then the 2 that tried to sacrifice the one guy are end up being the one being killed. I'm going to start calling him Battle Barack. That's his new nickname. I settled on it finally.
Yeah, I mean, it was good. It was enjoyable to watch. Like you guys pointed out, it was kind of sloppy storytelling in a sense where the dragons show up at the perfect timing. But I mean, I can look past that. It was enjoyable, and I actually did really like how they decided to the Tyrion's plan to not just go and kill everybody, which was what Dany's plan was. I definitely like the idea of send someone to tell, you need someone to go and tell them what happened. You need them to know, this is what happened when we tried to mess with her. And, you need that person. And you also need to say, hey, we let this person stay alive, too. So I thought it worked out really well. I mean, it was mostly Tyrion, which I think is the point here, is that Dany can't do this on her own. She needs someone like Tyrion to, not keep a leash on her necessarily, because she's definitely the one in control. But she definitely needs someone to help reel her in a little bit. So I thought that worked out nicely.
We also had an answer to one of our questions last week where we're like, why are they invading with the ships? It doesn't make any sense. Aren't there slaves in their cities already? They could just take those back. The answer is the story really needed Dany to get some ships.
Exactly.
So she had to capture all of those. Now they're hers.
Because apparently, as we'll find out later in the episode, the Greyjoys did not bring quite as many ships as she needed. They didn't bring 1,000. They didn't quite bring 1,000 ships.
And I'm glad you bring up the Greyjoys. First of all, I actually preferred the Mereen stuff over the stuff in the North. I know it's probably not a popular opinion, but I really did. And the scene between Yara and Dany,
it's
probably
great.
one of my favorite scenes. I really loved it.
Oh, me too. I was so over that scene.
Extremely good.
Oh, so good. The way they eyed each other, man. Come on, guys. I mean, come on.
If you really want that to happen, is that
it's gonna happen?
Do you have like fanfic that you're writing and like
define fanfic? No, listen here. I just think we've been talking. We talked about some LGBT opportunities on the show and how they were not so great usually. With Loras kind of being the butt end of a lot of jokes. So why not? And Yara's she's a badass. Dany's a badass.
She is. But a Greyjoy can't be tied down. Come on.
Well, no, we never said anything about marriage. Whoa, Austin, slow down.
Okay.
Whoa, get it carried
we're
away.
Just talking about a fling. I'm okay with that.
Like a regular fling, like a recurring fling, like And plus, I'm gonna assume that Westeros is also pretty bigoted also, so they're probably not going to be all into a queen with another queen. Just a thought.
Yeah, there were other aspects to this scene. If you didn't notice, Caleb, I know you were like entranced on this one particular part, but
the eyes, man.
No, I thought the interaction between Theon and Dany was pretty good. Basically, she's like questioning Theon, just like everybody has, and Theon's like, "No, I don't want to be king. I want my sister to be queen."
Yeah,
that's what's important here, and that feeling of mutual respect between Dany and Yara that you immediately get. And on top of that, Yara just being pretty hilarious throughout the entire scene, actually. The only thing that was really weird for me, did they show at all? Maybe I missed it. I mean, there were things going on in my house. Did they show at all the Greyjoys arriving, or we just cut and they're there?
They got there all really fast. Like, wasn't it just like an episode ago where Yara and Theon were hanging out at we
didn't even see them walking
or whatever.
In. They were just like boom, teleport there.
No, we got our ships.
So here's what happens. It cuts to Tyrion saying, "The last time I saw you was at Winterfell." I was like, "Holy shit, who are you talking to?" Oh, yeah, right. Oh, you're there already.
What's Arya? What's going on?
Yeah, right. No, that would have been cool if Arya showed up.
She might as well have. It's just as likely.
Yeah, again, guys, I hate to sound like the Debbie Downer, but I'm just going to say, again, going back to my criticism about the season so far, shorthand storytelling. Like, it's sloppy.
So yes, I agree with you here. This one felt less sloppy and more like they literally just cut a bunch.
Like, they cut, like, an entire episode's worth of material for the Greyjoys, or at least half an episode's worth of material.
I wouldn't be surprised if down the road we get the extended edition of season 6, and it's like 4 or 5 hours longer.
it's a 16 episode season.
Yeah, because I feel like they had to have filmed it. Like in their mind, they would think we need these things to happen, or it's not going to make sense. And they went back to like, we're at 75 minutes on this episode. We got to cut. Cut. Let's go.
All right. You're totally right, Austin. I 200% agree with you because it feels like there's something missing. And people who've regularly been listening to Good Trash Media are going to be sick of me hearing this. But you know what this reminds me of? It was the same criticism I lobbed at another certain other thing that came out earlier this year called Batman vs. Superman, where there were just like a total lack of establishing shots, like regularly, like editing decisions that made no sense. You're like, wait, how did we get, the time doesn't make, okay, well, the story is so cool, I don't really care anyway, except for Batman vs. Superman. Unlike Game of Thrones, it was not cool. It was not cool at all. But in this case, you're like, well, we get cool spectacle. But no, that's your thing, Austin. It really feels like we're on an abbreviated season. And that's what it's weird about it, is it's not just like, oh, we cut some stuff. It's like, oh, we left out establishing shots. Like, we didn't set it up at all.
I agree. And I have to believe they exist. Like, there's no way they just didn't film it or do it, and they just made editing decisions. Like, most of this season does feel like editing decisions at this point.
I mean, again, that still goes back to showrunner control.
Oh, so, yeah, totally does. Totally does. I'm not arguing that, yeah.
Yeah, but you're right. There's been a lot of that this season where it just feels like, hey, we're missing something here.
So,
but yeah, anyway, for the love of God, I said it a year ago too, guys. Go back and listen. Last year, if fucking Daenerys is not on this boat on her way out of Mereen at the end of the season, I'm done. I'm done with Dany. She can go.
those last 100 ships were the final straw.
She's got the
to
Dothraki.
carry her clothing or something. I don't know.
She literally said, "Is that enough ships to go?" Like she's like, right. It seems like she's there on the verge of ready to go.
So she's got. Let's go ahead and tally up. So she's got a Dothraki army, an army of like some of the most badass killers ever. She's got the Unsullied.
Yeah.
Well, there's also the Unsullied. There's the Dothraki, and then there's the Unsullied, who are literally bred to kill things. Like that's their sole purpose for existence. And then she's got 3 dragons, and she's got Tyrion behind her. She's got the brains. So I'm feeling like Dany's got some pretty good chances if she can just make it over there. I would really, really like for her to make it there or be on her way there.
And she's got, at least a portion of the Iron Islands fleet behind her as well. So, I mean, she set herself up fairly nicely after all this. I mean, kind of some of it was just luck for her, but it's worked out.
Well, my last question though about this scene before we move on. Do you feel like, are you guys okay with her just leaving Mereen? I feel like we've invested so much time there. It's a double. For me, it's a double. I'm so torn on it because on one hand, we've spent so much time there. It would feel like a waste. Like the entire time she was there was just spinning her wheels for like 3 seasons if we just left it right now. On one hand, but on the other hand, I really don't want to see her Mereen anymore. So I'm really curious. Like, what do you guys think?
I mean, I don't know how they're going to handle it, but I think there's a good chance that some people get left behind to manage Mereen. I don't think she's totally willing to just give up on it. Maybe she is. Maybe she doesn't care anymore. Maybe she's ready to take her kingdom, and that was it. But I could see someone like Varys staying.
Well,
you know,
that's what I was going to say though. Varys just left. Like it would seem like Varys could be a guy that you would like keep behind to manage it or something. But Varys just left, and we don't know exactly where he went. He said Westeros, and so how is he going to come back or meet them in the middle on the way out?
Maybe my Sandy. Like, she would be really good for that, actually. She could do it.
She's more of a servant, though. Not to
I couldn't
piss
see
on her.
Dany would want her with her, I feel like.
My Sandy and Grey Worm both. They both stay behind. I don't know. I think somebody stays behind. I don't know who.
I don't think that's
I feel like I agree with Austin. Someone has to just stay behind, but I don't know who it could be. And I kind of don't really care.
Yeah, none of us really care who is left behind. As long as Tyrion goes over with her, we're all good. We're all good here.
Also, we do need to talk about the possibility of them, on their way over to Westeros, running into Euron or something.
Oh, okay. And I'm just gonna take a moment to say I'm disappointed in the lack of Euron this season so far. Continue.
He's not a major character yet, so whatever.
Okay, well, maybe he'll come back in later. He does some other really cool stuff in the books. Not that that's a big deal. He does cool. He does some cool stuff, and I would love to see the cool stuff.
The one last thing. Well, never mind. Let's
go for
it.
What is it, Austin? Don't tease me, bud.
I can talk about it at the end of episode. It's about hope for next episode.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
All right. Well, that takes us to the titular, whatever, the Battle of the Bastards or the Battle at Winterfell. And I got to say, guys, this pretty much went exactly as we have been predicting all season long, like almost beat by beat. Now, I think we'll tail end this conversation by talking about Sansa, because I think she's definitely the most dynamic thing that's happening. The most interesting, personal opinion, the most interesting thing going on here is what's going on with her.
Dynamic, I think, is fair. I think so.
I agree.
Firstly, we get our kind of pre-war standoff between the battle. We got to face off, and well, I think we should have a mano-a-mano fight like in the old gods. And Ramsey's like, yeah, right. Best swordsman, king of the Night's Watch. I'm out, bro. But I've got an army. And I really wish Jon Snow would have been like, well, I mean, I guess it would have been pretty stupid. It would have been awesome if we flaunted his whole "I'm a resurrected snow motherfucker" card at him. You know, like I came back from the dead just to kill you. I mean, if we're gonna play into big action movie cliches, that would have been really awesome if he had like some really dumb one-liner about "I came back just to kill you" or something like that. I don't know. They've actually downplayed that. No one really, outside of his inner circle and the people with the Night's Watch, no one seems to know that Jon Snow got killed and brought back from the dead.
I feel like they had to have heard, but maybe not. I don't know.
No one else has mentioned it so far.
Well, I thought when Ramsey said, "I've heard stories about you," that he was going to say, "I've heard that you were killed by your own men, but yet here you stand," or something like that. But he didn't do that. He was just talking about how good of a swordsman he is. So,
it was. I mean, and Jon even talks about this a little bit later. That move was smart, I think, especially in front of Ramsey's men, to show like Ramsey's scared of this guy. He's not just going to fight him, and he's willing to sacrifice all of our lives because he's scared of him.
I feel like it was smart, but I feel like it never played out. If that makes sense.
No, I was kind of hoping that the Karstarks would start to like question him, or somebody would be the Umbers. Someone would be like, "Hey, Ramsey, what the hell, man? You could just fight him, and we don't have to fight. It'd be great if you do that, please."
Or even when they're talking to the tent with Davos and like some of the strategic things that they're coming up with, it's just like I feel like none of that stuff actually ever panned out. Like it was just like, hey, all this stuff's going to happen, and we have all these ideas, and then none of them ever really came to fruition.
Well, yeah, but that was exactly Sansa's point in that scene. So if we move on to the actual like planning scene, Sansa was like, all these things you're thinking, like it doesn't make sense. Ramsey doesn't play by your rules. He sets the traps. Like,
well, Jon Snow was
conventional means.
Right. Jon Snow was being, honestly, in my opinion, multiple times in this episode, which we'll talk about here in a moment, was the starkest he's ever been in the worst of ways.
That's not a bad thing.
No, it is. He did. You know how many stupid things he did in this episode? Like stupid.
Hey, did they win? That's all matters.
Yeah,
man.
because Sansa did the not Stark thing to do. That's exactly why they won. Because Sansa's like, yeah, I'm not going to play by the Stark rules because we all die.
Did you see? Yeah. Did you see Jon living through that battle like crazy? Like he should have died like 3 or 4 times and he didn't. That's because he's a Stark man. The gods kept him alive.
Oh my god.
The gods kept him alive. The gods going to bring him back to life. What do they care if he dies now? It doesn't.
Yeah, Stoll. I have to acquiesce to Stoll. The god did keep him alive. You want to know why? Because you know who kept him alive? Petyr Baelish is a god. Kept him alive.
Okay, hold on. Let's talk about that for a moment. Okay, Sansa has this card in her back pocket. I don't know if maybe she never heard back from Baelish. Maybe she had no idea.
He didn't text me back. I was waiting on your text message back, babe.
So maybe she didn't have anything that she could solidly give information to Jon. That's what I'm going to hope took place. Because if she literally just didn't tell him, it's really stupid. And the only reason I can think of that happening was if it was some sort of strange power play on her part. If she's trying to like wrestle control of things away from Jon and show like you depend on me now. But so many lives were sacrificed because she didn't say anything.
Oh, exactly. I've got a couple theories on that actually. And no, my exact thought, not as much when I was initially watching, when I was rewatching it, for the podcast, I was sitting there, I was like, wait, you could have unveiled this crucial bit of information like, hey, we've got an entire other giant army that I could summon at my will. In fact, I've already summoned them. They're on their way. Like, that would have changed her entire strategy. But instead, in the war room, she's all like, Jon, why won't you listen to me? Okay, don't listen to me. Oh, no, Sansa, I hear you out. You're right. I don't know what you want me to do. What should I do? I don't know, Jon. I'm sorry. You're just not listening to me. It was really strange.
She said, wait a few days. She did say that, but she didn't say wait a few days because I sent for help.
Yeah,
and then they would have had an argument and blah, 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 but it wouldn't have mattered at that point. Like, they still were coming.
Hey, I hope he calls her out on this. She deserves to be called out on this.
He will. I will. He certainly will.
Oh, and now here's the other thought. Thinking in terms of Baelish. You got to start thinking like Baelish here, okay? So Sansa is his apprentice, so to speak, right? So she knew, and she told Jon this, that Rickon was dead. Like, surefire dead from the get-go. Because guess who's the rightful heir to Winterfell? Rickon Stark. Now, I think you could read that maybe she told him that knowing that she kind of was hoping he would die. So that when he died and they won the battle, she would be the heir of Winterfell.
Yeah, I mean, I see where you're going. I don't think she's that un-Stark-like yet. I think she was just being a realist.
I don't know.
I appreciate. She was at least the realest person in this episode where she's like, no, he's dead already. We're just going to assume he's dead and move on.
It didn't really make any sense for him to be alive. The only reason he would have been alive was just to use as some sort of hostage tool to maybe like get them to surrender early, or to have him killed in front of them, which was what he was. That's the only reason to even keep him alive. So I think she was right in that argument. You know, like he's going to die no matter what happens.
And I think she was correct too, but I just wonder if the way she was divulging that information could have been used as a strategery. Just a thought.
I think if this was somebody else, yes, but this is Sansa, and I still believe she's a Stark at heart.
Yeah, did you see the way she she let Ramsay get eaten by dogs? Okay, right. Just saying.
But she still has a sense of honor about her. Like she's still like, you know, we have to take Winterfell. It's our home. Like she still has that in her. Now she's grown a lot and has a lot of different. She does things in a much different way now, but still in her core, she still is a Stark.
She might have a different tool belt, but she's still a Stark.
Yeah.
Okay.
If she has really fallen that low, then we have another Ramsay Bolton on our hands.
Petyr Baelish for the win. So now moving on past the war room, though, then we get a little exchange between Davos and Tormund talking about Stannis. I really like these couple scenes actually because it reminds us how at odds these people kind of should be, but because of circumstances they're working together. But you've got Tormund who's all like, "Yeah, Stannis burned our king," and Stannis, and then Dave was like, well, Stannis was kind of crazy. Oh, wait, your crazy king burned our king. You know, like there's this weird kind of almost a conflict of interest that they were. I mean, I'm sure they already realized it, but on the screen, that was the first realization that, oh, we were enemies and now we're working together. I don't really know why we're working together, but here we are. And then you have Davos actually finding Mereen, Shireen's little toy wooden carving that he gave her last year. Which was a reminder to us that, oh yeah, him and Melisandre, who have been pals all season long, they're all good. They're all like that. They are at odds still, even though they've kind of this season kind of been united behind Jon Snow. The two of them are still very much not friends.
Yeah, but it did feel like even in that conversation, he blamed a lot of what happened on Stannis because Stannis is the one that makes the final decisions. So while yes, he was frustrated with Melisandre at points, he does say, you know, Stannis killed himself or something like that. Like he ran himself into the ground. He didn't clearly know about Shireen, so that is a huge moment for him where he's got on her side for at least a little bit to help the Jon out or whatever. But it was definitely sad. I wouldn't say it was like heartbreaking or anything. I mean, it made you remember what happened, but for his personal character, it was just like, oh, it was definitely a sad moment. I didn't like tear up or anything, but it was definitely emotional when that happened.
Yeah, I wasn't sure until that point whether or not he knew what had happened. I had assumed he had found out because obviously there was quite a few witnesses there. But and this scene kind of confirms that he didn't know, like he knew she was dead, but probably assumed she was slaughtered somehow. When he finds that, I think he knows exactly what's happened. He's seen that happen many times before. He watched like dozens and dozens of people get burned in season 2, I think, and 3, and pretty much on up until now.
And I don't see him like just letting this go like at all. Like that was the one person he had an extremely deep relationship with. In some ways, he was a father figure to her, even though Stannis was actually there. You know, and he saw her as a daughter, definitely. So this is not something he's going to just say it was part of. It was, you know, he's going to do something about this for sure. And we'll see the repercussions of that later.
Yeah, I was very much wondering, is he going to just go on a murderous spree, or is he like, how is he going to handle this? It wouldn't seem like a very Davos thing to do to just immediately seek revenge.
Well, yeah, it seems like he definitely keeps his cool for the battle, for the purpose of the battle. Like that's what's happening right now. Like, you know, the horn even blows right as he finds it. So he knows, okay, I've got to do this first. But when you could definitely get the sense that when this is over, I've got some things that I need to take care of type of mentality.
Oh yeah, and again, he even kind of lays that down. He's like, I walk in and get nervous. You can tell he's the guy who's very focused on his objective. So he's setting personal feelings aside for the battle. But I think he's going to. I think we're going to see follow up to this in next episode.
It was a really cool shot how he found it too, because like if you looked at the sky, it was actually kind of like a red sort of sunrise and had this like bloody, fiery kind of look. So I thought it was actually kind of a neat scene where you get the picture behind him of, she was burned alive, and you kind of get that image behind him. So I thought that was kind of a cool shot right there too.
Well, let's go ahead and move on here. Quickly, we did get a scene between Jon and Melisandre, and basically she's just kind of preaching some more like, hey, the gods chose you to come back from the dead, and Jon's all like, hey, don't bring me back from the dead again. I really don't. I don't like being brought back from the dead, apparently. So I really wish we had more time to explore the psychology of what's going on in his head, because that has to be crazy, like what he's thinking. And again, it would work. Would be a really good old-fashioned Game of Thrones monologue with Jon Snow talking about it. But hey, we don't have time for those this season, so...
Yeah, I agree with you. It is unfortunate that we don't get to see what's going on with him, and there doesn't seem to be, we've kind of hinted at before, it doesn't seem like there's been any consequences. Like we even talked about last season, when we theorized if he was actually going to come back, whether he would be a different Jon Snow, if there'd be, if it doesn't even seem like it's impacted him that much, which it feels like it should be the most impactful, it should be hugely impactful. So I feel like we haven't gotten from him what we really need to. Maybe they'll go into it, but it's taken too long already. So it's a criticism either way.
Well, yeah, if they don't pick it up now, it's going to feel weird doing it later. But it's like we spent 3 episodes building up to him getting brought back, and then it's like, oh, he's back. Then keep the ball rolling. Well, let's go ahead and get off to the races then, shall we? Ramsey releases Rickon to play a game, and wouldn't you know it, apparently old Gran never told Rickon that he needed to run in zigzags when running away from an archer.
My wife Rachel actually said that. She said, zigzag, run. Like as he's running away.
Rickon has never played Call of Duty, clearly.
Jump, move around. Like don't let him get a shot off.
Like literally run in a straight line and make the target very easy.
I actually was surprised. I actually was surprised it wasn't worse, to be honest. I remember last week I said I honestly thought he might be like flayed in front of them and put on one of those burning X's. I thought that's the level we were going to get. It wasn't as dark as I actually thought it was going to be.
He does this, right? And it draws Jon Snow into archer range.
Because Jon Snow's a moron in a Stark.
Yeah, well, but he knows that he's a moron in a Stark. Like, it was really a smart move.
Right.
It was. By Ramsey.
What I laughed about during this, and I don't, because I'm a dark, sick, twisted person, is he gets shot with the arrow and then gets hit with like 10 more arrows. And it was just like Benioff and Weiss saying, yeah, you complain about those off-screen deaths. How you like this now? He's definitely dead. Totally dead.
Right. No, I thought the same thing. I didn't laugh at it, but I was like, I was going to say, Stoll, it's not as dark as you expected. We see the child's body get hit with like 9 other arrows after he's already out for the count. So
I mean, this just tells you how far they've taken Ramsey's character and what Game of Thrones has done to us, that you don't think that was that bad.
I mean, it was at least kind of merciful, fast. So there's that.
Yeah, exactly.
He's just like Egret, shot to the heart.
Oh my gosh.
I also wondered if he was going to let loose the dogs on him, because they had like just brought that up.
That's what I thought was going to happen, actually, when he was pulling him out there. But, of course, Jon Snow does the Starkiest thing he could do. Oh, my God, Rickon's there. I'm going to charge out there by myself to rescue him. Oh. And despite all the strategy they talked about where they said, or Davos is like, absolutely make him make the first move. And, so they got to defend. They've got to defend their. It's an RTS, right? You have to defend your hero. So they had to send their cavalry in.
Well, I think this would have been like a
war. I know you wait for your archers to shoot them first. You just gotta wait for them to come to you.
I feel like this would have been a moment like what we were just talking about, had Jon been saying he almost, as part of coming back, he didn't even want to come back. He kind of wanted to die. And this was just like, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to go run to my death type of mentality. And if they had set all that up with his return, then maybe it's a little bit more understandable in a sense. But because we don't get all that, we don't know what's going on in his head and all that stuff. So, it does seem to just be like oh my gosh, I'm charging because you killed people. We killed my brother. I don't know. So it's definitely a Stark thing to do.
He charged out there. I forgot to add the caveat. Not only did he charge in to save Rickon, when Rickon was dead, he's like, "Fuck it, I'm gonna keep charging right head first into their cavalry." What?
Did anyone expect his sword to like burst into flames there at the end or something?
It would have been sick.
I kind of thought it was gonna happen. It didn't.
Well, to be fair, that was a really cool shot where you see all of them running at him and he just pulls his sword and stands in front of them. Like, that was really cool.
I mean, what else are you going to do? You can't run away. It's cavalry, right? So he might as well stand and fight.
It was a cool shot, like when he thought he's about to get hit and then his cavalry shot. That was awesome. It looked cool. It really was great. And it's just like, wow, of course Jon Snow would do the dumbest thing. Oh, man. But yeah, it's okay. It's who he is. He's a Stark.
And it's exactly what Sansa said too. And I think that's actually more key to me. Is like Sansa said, "Do not do what he wants," and that's literally what he does. He does exactly what he wants. So
the Starks are really great at that, aren't they? Starks are. Let's go back to PTSD flashback to Ned Stark in season 1. Everybody, Littlefinger, Cersei, Renly, hey, this is about to go down. You should not do what you're thinking about doing. Really, really don't do this. And then, oh, nope, it's the honorable thing to do. Gotta go take care of business. And dead.
I love your Ned Stark impression. It's perfect.
That's what Ned Stark sounds like in a Legend of Zelda game. So,
hey, Sean Bean's just died so many times. That's all he knows how to do.
He went straight into like the Bravos version of Ned Stark there in the play.
It was just kind of ridiculous and almost over the top, but it was fun. I thought it was cool. Well, we're gonna skip over. We'll just quickly. There was an epic battle. Lots of epic battle things happened. Lots of very cool things.
It was cool. I gotta say, I really loved when there's like this guy getting ready to swing at Jon Snow and a horse just like boom knocks him completely off the screen.
Yeah. That was amazing.
Beautiful.
Davos is like, well, he might as well be taking a ship back here. Charge! He's all like,
it was great. It was perfect.
There was a lot of Leroy Jenkinsing going on in here.
Yeah, there definitely was. There was actually a lot of really cool cinematography going on there. It was shot really well. This is going to sound really, really dark, but I liked the mounds of bodies. It was because you can imagine that's how it actually is. That the bodies just start piling up in a sense like that, and they become
Did
terrain.
It seem like that was more bodies than there was actually people there, though?
In some senses, yeah.
I guess there was horses and stuff there too. I guess you could say the horses played a part in the mound of corpses.
I think this definitely showed the brutality of war more so than any other battle scene we've had in Game of Thrones. So I think that's what it was going for. There was some Saving Private Ryan-esque moments. You see a guy with his legs cut off and he's like crawling away, and then you see like a guy like screaming for help, and like nobody's coming to his aid.
And then you see Tormund, and then you see a Tormund kicking a guy in the balls. I mean, yeah, just like every epic war scenario ever.
Was that the House Umber guy that he like rips off his side of his face?
Yes.
He Mike Tyson'd him, man.
So that was the House Umber guy who delivered Rickon. And okay, do you remember when that happened and we were all like, hey, there's something more going on here?
Yeah, we were wrong.
Again, it's more of a disappointing thing. I mean, I guess it's not a huge deal, but that whole scenario was just really weird to me.
Well, I was just say it's more of that, Jon even says when they see that he won't fight for them, there'll be people that come to our side. I thought that would have been a great thing. Like, hey, he could have fought you and he didn't. So I'm a Karstark and I'm going to fight for you now. But it just never happened. Like, it just never played out. Like, it felt like they set up some really cool things to happen and then nothing cool. None of those types of things happened.
That would have been really cool had his men actually turned on him. That would have been a really cool way to do something that I don't feel like has been seen, at least not often. Like where all of a sudden you see all his men surrounded or something, and then they all just turn around and charge the castle together. I don't know.
Yeah, like Jon says, look at him. He's standing up on the hill and he's not fighting for you. And yet you're here giving your lives. Like they set some of those things up and they just didn't do them.
In its own way, that would have been cliche, though, I think. I'd have complained about that, too. There's no pleasing us around here at this podcast. We're always going to be mad at everything.
Well, no, and I'm not trying to complain. It mostly goes back to the way they set up Lord Umber in the first place. I agree. I thought it was like, this is weird how this is happening, and just at this point in time, it just felt like such a strategic time for it to happen, which finds out, sloppy writing, strategic time for this to happen. And I was like, well, there's got to be more here. There's got to be. I thought maybe Littlefinger, he was in leagues with Littlefinger or something, but nope, he's just a foot soldier who got one really awesome scene with Ramsey earlier in the season. No, the body of the pile of bodies was pretty impressive, powerful visual when they're all surrounded by the pikemen. And then they're all caved in by that. And I love how once Tormund's like, oh my God, we're about to die, everyone turns around, they're like, run away, and they just start climbing over the bodies, like just sprinting up the mountain, the body.
The moment where Jon's getting trampled and covered in bodies, and that was so well done. And we can give Benioff and Weiss crap for lots of things, but that right there was... it probably wasn't that. I'm not sure who the director was. Do you know who the director was for this?
It's the same guy who directed Hardhome from last year.
I literally started to have a panic attack as he's like under that pile of bodies. It had a physical response to me. That's how well done it was.
Yeah, I had a physical response too. When you see like the flashes of light as people are like running over him, I couldn't. I had to like turn my head for a second. I was like, I can't. Like it hurts to watch in a way. So I agree that was very well executed.
It was super, super well done. As they're getting like collapsed and crushed, that whole 2-minute section there was just, I think, probably the most tense moments I've seen on this show that I can think of.
Yeah, no, it was super intense, and it was pretty cool seeing 1-1 kill some dudes. He literally tore a dude in half over his head. That was pretty awesome too. The giant, for those of you not in the know, that's 1-1. Now, this was all great.
I do love me some 1-1. I do wish he'd been able to stick around a little longer.
You knew he wasn't. I knew it was going to happen. I was sad because I think he's the only giant we've seen, I believe, which is a real bummer.
Kind of. It's been a bad season for giants and half giants alike.
Ooh.
Too soon.
Now, all hope is lost until Gandalf the Grey shows up on the third day of the first. I mean, Littlefinger shows up twirling his mustache on the hill and shows up with reinforcements. And then of course just cleans the floor with all of Ramsay's forces.
It's funny you say that because the people I was watching it with were like, we really need Gandalf right now. And there he shows right up.
I literally, the whole episode, that whole battle, I was like, all right, where you at, Baelish? I know you're coming. Yeah. Where are you?
I was legitimately hoping he would show up too late. Like, everyone would be slaughtered already. They'd still win the castle, but Jon would be dead. Everybody would be dead. It didn't happen. It was still too storybook for me.
Again, I thought there would be something a little more consequential about this. I mean, I know a lot of people died, obviously, but the consequence for Team Jon didn't really feel like it was quite there. And I do think I want to hold judgment on that until next episode, though, just to kind of get a feel for that. Now, then we have Jon and Tormund. Everybody charges up to the castle, and Ramsay's all like, "We can hold up in here for months. We've already won. We're gonna starve them out. We're gonna wait them out." And then, of course, Team Jon's all like, "Yeah, you've got a wall. We've got a 1-1." And to quote Tony Stark over there.
It was great. I love that when he busts down the door. It was fantastic.
I mean, it just goes. I just thought it was even down to his last moments, and that's the thing you get with people like Ramsay or Joffrey when they get down to these moments. You want them to like have this realization of like they're terrible people and then die, and they just don't have it, and it's just it somehow doesn't satisfy when that doesn't happen. Like he still thinks, oh, we can hold this forever. He's like, oh, I can duel Jon. Like he always thinks that he legitimately believes he has the ability to weasel his way out of it. Like they don't.
Oh, these dogs will never hurt me.
Yeah, like there's always just that's and it's frustrating as a fan because you want them to have this broken, like, I messed up, I'm sorry, like I shouldn't have done this, da 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 da, and those moments just don't happen.
It really is. It's never satisfying revenge unless the party realizes that they did wrong. I think that's the key to it, which is exactly your point. It doesn't ever feel like when we do finally get his judgment passed, basically, it doesn't feel satisfying because he never acknowledges that he's a horrible person.
Right. Small, minute point. He shoots the arrow at 1-1, but could he have not just shot Jon there?
That wouldn't have been as emotionally damaging. Remember, Ramsey's all about the emotional death of everybody, including the audience, because he knows he's like Deadpool. He's so cartoonish that he realizes he's in a show practically.
He should. He needs to break the fourth wall. That'd have been fantastic.
Hey, he could still come back as a White Walker. I'm just saying.
Oh, it's true.
I mean,
now,
I'm pretty sure he's in pieces. I don't know if that's possible.
Look, Ramsey will now literally be a piece of shit.
That's true.
In like a day or two.
That's true.
Question mark. I mean, Jon beats the crap out of him. It was pretty great. And then, of course, Jon's like, yeah, I'm not going to kill him because he's a Stark. And yeah.
I thought it was more like I'll leave you to Sansa. Not.
Yeah.
I thought it was a little bit of both, honestly.
I think you're right. I think it was more the Sansa thing, honestly. But it is a little both. I mean, it does show between Jon doing that, like nearly beating the man to death, and Sansa doing what she does, how far the Starks have fallen. They really have. The whole honorable thing is nearly out the window. I mean, even Arya, they have a sliver of it left, but they're such damaged property at this point.
Yeah, no, Arya totally off the dude last season, like brutally murdered a guy last year, if you recall.
But I think they all have a sliver of Ned still in them, basically. But they are damaged goods across the board.
Well, and even we talked about earlier this season that Ned wasn't all he was cracked up to be either. I mean, like he had this whole mantra that he taught them and ingrained in them, but even he didn't follow it as closely as at least as much as I don't want to say as he said about himself, but as far as the myth of Ned Stark, even he didn't.
And that's
follow
probably true of every parent, I'd imagine. Do as I say, not as I do, kind of thing.
Yes, they're brutally murdering people, but for them, it's still an honorable thing because of what the other person has done. So, like, the reason they're killing in their minds is for honor. I think.
If they would have done it Ned Stark style, Ramsay Bolton gets his head cut off.
It's true.
I agree.
They've gone a little less Batman and a little bit more Punisher. That's basically how.
Yes, most definitely. Although even Batman's a little too dark for Ned Stark. But yeah, no, they're definitely full on Punisher mode now. Sansa leaving Ramsay to the dogs. Satisfied?
I mean, not with like Ramsay's death. Yeah, okay, finally he's dead. We don't have to. He's not, which is what we wanted. He wanted him to die. So I'm not like, yay, he's dead. I'm like, okay, like he's gone now. Like we can move past this or whatever. I think more of that scene, as we talked about earlier, is about Sansa actually like smiling as she walked away. It felt like a little bit of an Arya moment when she killed Polliver through the neck with needle.
Referring to, I just want to remind listeners out there, Polliver was the punk she killed in season 4 with the chicken thing. She stabbed the dude through the throat. Yeah,
Arya killed him, and I felt like this was a little bit of that moment for Sansa. You know, having such a brutal killing, you know, obviously in her and most of the fans' minds too, deserved death. But I think I don't think we're necessarily supposed to be, look what she did and be happy about it type of thing. I think it's supposed to be like, wow, look what she's actually doing.
Based on internet reactions, I would say a lot of people were pretty happy with that. I'm not saying they were necessarily like relishing in that and celebrating the murderer, but people seem pretty happy that he got eaten by the dogs, like just in general. It
was ironic in the sense that he set it up to where he was gonna, you know, they hadn't eaten in 7 days, and he had set it up, and it was his own downfall in a sense that way. So it was ironic.
And the producers kind of go on to say, like, it's very symbolic of all his demons kind of coming back to bite him, like literally and figuratively.
Oh boy. Hey, now, okay, fun fact, nitpick. Sansa is not present when he says the thing about the dogs.
You're right.
Not
I went
important.
back and watched it.
And
You're
not
right.
important whatsoever, but I noticed that the second time. I was like, wait a second. She wasn't there when he said that.
It is definitely, I mean, yeah, you could explain it off, but that's probably an oversight, I would think.
It's because remember, she like rides off her horse and she's like, well, you're going to die tomorrow, rides off. And then it was like literally like the next line he says to Jon after she's clearly, there's a shot that establishes that she's far away. And then he clearly says to Jon, my dogs are hungry, they haven't eaten in 7 days. And then at the end, she uses the same line. I was like, but she wasn't there, but I'm sure Jon probably, I am sure he told her that he said that exact phrase, Anyway, a fun bit. I think this is a big thing, a step for her character in the dark direction. She is embracing the porn stash twirling ways of Petyr Baelish, and she's seeing that has benefits like living. So I think we're gonna see her go a lot more that way.
I think this is great. Yeah, I think this is great for her character. I've been saying this season she's becoming one of my favorite characters. And they've been setting this up for a while. It's nice to finally see her get here.
Took her about 2 seasons longer than we thought, but hey, what is? Well, I think that about wraps our discussion. Unless you guys have anything else you want to add to the Battle of the Bastards.
Well, I'll ask this to kind of tag on the Sansa thing. We criticized the whole Ramsey Bolton storyline and the whole thing with Petyr Baelish kind of handing her over to him and all this stuff. And when she left, we're like, that was pointless. Why did we do that? What was the whole thing? Do you think this scene where she's walking away and she's definitely a bit more evil in a way, does that justify it a little bit? Does it pay off a little now, or what do you think?
No, I mean it pays off. I still maintain, and I think this episode, my argument would say that this episode is further evidence that Baelish just out of character, admittedly, but Baelish made a mistake by letting her go with Ramsey, and he felt bad enough about it that he actually went against what might have been the safer pick to back Ramsey, to back Sansa and the Starks, because on paper he betrayed the crown. I'm doing that, by the way. So I think for me, it just showcases that there is some real. We've been back and forth about this for years now, but I really do believe that Petyr Baelish, despite being a monster who knows no bounds in his use of people, still has a real soft spot for Sansa and does care about her. Whether or not everything he's done has been in her benefit, obviously leaving her Winterfell was a mistake.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right, and I think the big question here is what is the aftermath of this, because, as you said, this is still like against the crown. Like they tried to boot the Starks out, and now the Starks are back. And so, how does King's Landing respond to this? Do they does Jaime get sent up to Winterfell now? I mean,
I think the play is from Littlefinger is, look, he killed his father. He killed Roose Bolton. He was obviously not fit for rule. I took care of the situation. That's the only thing I can think of, anyway.
Yeah, no, I think Baelish has got some ground to stand on. Again, it would have been great to have gotten at least 1 or 2 scenes to see kind of what he was thinking about all of this at all, like literally at all, because he's only been in literally 3 scenes. Count them, 3 scenes the entire season. So it would have been nice to have seen a little more about where he was falling on some of this with some other character interactions.
I think we'll have some heavy Baelish next season, though. I think you're going to be pleased.
I am disappointed by lack of Baelish.
I think it'll be in the
next
episode. A lot of them in the next episode too.
Look, this was the season of the Greyjoy, okay? It was great. Loved it. It was such a better season than all past seasons because of Greyjoys.
Austin, I don't agree with that statement at all in any form or fashion.
It's been season Stark. What are you talking about? This has been all about the Starks coming back finally. This has been my season.
Starks? What are you talking about?
I think this was the season of Daenerys finding herself and getting that army.
Well, to be fair, the season's not over, so
go ahead and wrap up. What are you guys feeling for next week? Next week's episode, which is the Winds of Winter. No, we're going to talk about that here in just one moment. But first, I do want to remind you, if you have enjoyed listening to us here on the Cast Beyond the Wall, like we said at the top of the episode, we want to talk to you guys. We want to hear from you. So, of course, you can hear us if you want to head over and talk to us on the Good Trash Media social media pages at facebook.com/goodtrashmedia or on Twitter at good_trash. And if you want to send us an email, like go ahead and email goodtrashgenrecast@gmail.com. And lastly, I want to remind you guys that here on the Cast Beyond the Wall, we are part of the Good Trash Media Network this year, and we work very, very hard to produce you guys quality content, lots of quality content every single week. We do have other things that we do, so one way you can kind of really help support the value of what we do here on the Cast Beyond the Wall and help us do more is by heading on over to patreon.com/GTM and contributing to our funding there. So, I mean, if we have a lot of rewards, coming out that you can go check out there. You can give us as little as $1 a month. That'll really, really help us kind of produce more shows. You can give as much up to $25 a month where we can all hang out on Google Hangouts and just talk about whatever you want to talk about. $10 a month, you get to pick a movie for one of our shows. So we try to make it worth your while. But really, seriously, anything you can do to help us out would be extremely we'd be very, very, very thankful for that. Gentlemen, where can the people of the internet find you online? Austin?
You can contact me on Twitter if you want to chat about the show. My Twitter handle is ACLucari.
How about you, Daniel?
You can find me at DanielStull23, and you can tweet at me and tell me how you too are excited that the Starks are back.
Are they Stull? Are they really back? Are we sure?
For at least an episode, okay?
Well, there it is. And of course, guys, so I made a promise at the top of the season that I was going to change my Twitter handle before the season was over.
No, you didn't.
I did. Not just once, but twice, because I didn't like I changed it for like a week and realized Big Cal Baelish was in the running. Didn't quite make the cut. Felt a little sleazy. And I changed it once to another one that just didn't quite stick with me. It didn't ring, and when I started to say it, I was like, no, I don't like that at all. So my new Twitter handle, as promised, ladies and gentlemen, was a lot less clunky than Big Cal Kenobi 91. My new Twitter handle is C, as in the letter C, Masters Talk. I like it. I saw the one prior to this, and I'm glad you changed it. It was not good. It was not good at all. I tried it, and I was trying to come up with something clever that wasn't already taken. And guys, What do you know it? If you have a good idea for a Twitter handle, make sure to jump on that, because I had one a couple months ago that was totally available, didn't change it, and was not available this time around. So that's an important thing to keep in mind on the internet. Those names go fast. The Winds of Winter, which is kind of alluding to the title of the eventually coming out 6th book, The Winds of Winter.
It'll be here in a month, man. It's just a month away or something like that, right?
There are pages. I heard there were pages.
It was funny. I think he's probably by this point, I think he's put out like 7 or 8 sample chapters, like several chapters. Yeah. Over the course of like the last 3 years, which is just really.
I have a checklist for this last episode, guys. I'm going to just name off a couple and then probably steal all your guys' ideas. I want to know where Jorah's going. I want to touch on him. I want to see Arya get on a boat. I want to see Dany get on a boat. Hopefully together. That'd be fantastic. Won't happen, though. I want to touch on Euron Greyjoy. And I think we're pretty safely going to see a trial in King's Landing.
I'd say that's accurate. Now, Austin, you forgot something, though. You forgot something.
There's a lot of things I'm leaving out.
You forgot something. You forgot something very important, though.
Uh-oh.
You forgot your old buddy Sam. What's he up to? Samwell Tarly.
Oh, yeah. He grabbed the sword, and where's he at now?
And I mean, you guys were watching at last night's episode together, so I figured like you'd want to check on and see where he's at, right?
I heard the Greyjoys raided his town.
Well, he wasn't there though because he ran away, so he's definitely good. He's safe. What if he kills another White Walker, Austin? Another one with the sword this time?
I'm sure he will, and I'm just gonna cry.
All right, Stoll, how about you? What are we looking at for Winds of Winter?
Well, I'm already going to be my expectations are actually very low. I feel like they've done a really poor job of setting storylines up to be resolved I mean, I think we absolutely have to have a trial, and we need to know what happens. I think if that does not happen, it's going to be extremely frustrating to have to see how that storyline ends in next season. So I definitely agree about that. I don't think we actually need to see Arya. I mean, yeah, we could maybe see her get on a boat and that's it, but I actually don't know if we need to see that. I feel like her story's we need to just move on. I think we need to see, I do agree that we need to see Dany get on a boat. I think we need to see a little bit of the aftermath of what happened at Winterfell and see how where they're going to be setting up for next season. I just think there's just way too much that they have to resolve. And I don't know if they can fit it all in one episode. Now, I know that this is supposed to be the longest episode they've ever done, but I don't know. I don't really have high expectations for this. I don't think they've done a very good job this season of having very good storytelling, as we've said over and over again. And I feel like this has potential to be a poor episode. Now, maybe I'm wrong and it'll be great, but I'm not going in with high expectations.
I mean, I think this is more last year, if you recall, episode 10 was like the most traditional season finale we've had. Like all the plot points, most of the plot points climaxed in episode 10, and then there was a bajillion cliffhangers. And I'm actually glad it doesn't look like we're going to be there this year. It doesn't look like it. I'd much rather, I actually much prefer the thing where it climaxes episode 9 and we have time to breathe in episode 10 a little bit and kind of set up where we're going next season. Because that's the big question mark. Like, I don't know, I'm pretty unclear with where any of these storylines are heading next season. And it would be nice to kind of get like some sort of direction to look for. I think we're going to check in with almost everybody. Arya probably gets cut. I kind of hope she gets cut. I really don't want to see her. I think we're going to see Greyjoys. Maybe Euron. Maybe. I don't know. Guys, are we forgetting about that one thing that happened?
Power of Joy?
Yeah, well, that thing too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
They actually have to absolutely show us that. Like, if they do not show us that is bad.
I'm pissed. I am going to be pissed. Like angry, because you don't set that up in the season and wait an entire another year to finish giving us the information. I just feel cheap.
The first 4 episodes of the season and then just forget about it for 6 episodes.
I feel like whatever way they reveal Jon Snow's heritage, it's not going to be anticlimactic, because there's been, as Austin even mentioned earlier tonight, there's been a couple of opportunities. What if his sword is like lit up in flames? Tonight? That would have been a cool moment to be like, oh my God, he is a Targaryen. He's the prince that was promised. Or I still go back to being a little bitter to the fact that, again, that we didn't see Jon Snow like walk out of the fire or something like that. Anyway, I'm not going to lob too much criticism at the show, because it's not fair to criticize a show based on what they didn't do. I just think what they did do is just okay. So I'm at the rate they're moving though, I'm like, I feel like by the time they reveal it, it's just going to be like a non-issue. We'll be like, oh, that was cool. We all knew it was going to happen. So especially if we wait that extra year. So we need to see that. But I also think, guys, there was a little place, you might have heard of it, called Dorne.
Don't you see it?
Dorne?
No.
That we forgot about. That was apparently taken over in a coup.
That place died with Oberyn Martell.
So we never went there. Is what you're saying.
And we also got to know what happens with Jaime too. Like where's he going to be going? Like setting up for next season too. Like this is why I'm not necessarily going with high expectations. I don't think they can do what they need to do in this next episode. Yeah. So while you're saying
maybe half
like
of those
with the
will get touched on.
Right. And I like you were talking about with the cliffhangers, I agree with you. And I don't think that they have set themselves up to not have that. So I'm already feeling kind of iffy about this episode.
I really feel like a lot of the storylines have concluded to a satisfying point where I'd be fine with going into the next season. It would be good, like Caleb said, to build up. And so I have something to anticipate and be excited about over the summer, but not a cut to black cliffhanger kind of thing.
No, and I actually don't. I don't think we're going to see cut to black cliffhangers. That's what I'm saying. I feel like this is going to be more traditional Game of Thrones season finale, where it's like, oh, I wonder where. Oh, this is kind of cool. Where we're heading next year. Let's talk about that, which is kind of theorized. Versus last year, it was literally like, oh, what happened to Stannis? I guess Sansa and Theon just jumped off a thing. Okay. Like almost every major cliffhanger. Jon Snow got stabbed. What happened? Oh, I don't think we're going to have any. I honestly don't think we're going to have any of that. I did disagree though. I do think because it's extra long, we are going to touch on almost everything. Whether or not it's satisfying, that one scene that every character gets is satisfying or not is a different story. But that's just my 2 cents. Well, guys, we have made it almost to the end. I can't believe we just talked about episode 9 of season 6. It literally just flew by. God. But here we are, prepping for the season finale of Game of Thrones season 6. So make sure to join us again when we talk about the season 6 finale, The Winds of Winter, next week when we go back beyond the wall.